Good evening and welcome to the February 3rd, 2021 meeting of the Gaithersburg Planning Commission. Good evening, commissioners and staff and all the friends involved tonight. First up is first let me announce that Sharon Cantrell will be joining us and participating this evening as a regular commissioner, as we have one of our regular commissioners out for this meeting. So welcome and thank you for being here tonight, Sharon. First up on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from January 6th, 2021. Is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes of January 6th, 2021 as read in the record.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, and I will do the roll call vote. Commissioner Wessel.
Aye.
Commissioner Kaufman.
Aye.
Commissioner Winborn.
Aye.
Commissioner Cantrell.
I wasn't there, so I guess I abstain.
You don't have to, but it's okay.
No,
to
yeah.
Aye.
Can we just make a
Okay.
point of
If you've
information
reviewed-
that if she
generally,
reviews
if you-
them?
Yeah, generally,
I'm
Sharon,
sorry.
if you've reviewed the items on our agenda, your vote, you're qualified to vote, or any of the actions we take tonight.
Fine. Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Next up is the approval of our minutes from January 20th, 2021.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a correction on those minutes.
Okay,
I had to drop out of the meeting before the vote was taken. Therefore, I did not vote on that particular item. I'd like for that to be noted for the record. However, I did watch the proceedings afterward and am able to state for the record that I'd like to approve the minutes of January 20th, 2021 as read to the record.
Second.
all right, and again, the roll call. Commissioner Wessel,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaufman,
Aye.
Commissioner Winborn,
Aye.
Commissioner Cantrell.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye as well, and that passes unanimously. And I guess since Marion's not on the call, Greg, that note about correcting him, that just makes its way back.
Yeah, I'll let her know and we'll get that,
Okay.
get the minutes corrected.
Perfect, thank you. All right, next we have a record plat agenda with one item tonight. Greg, you want to set that up?
Yep, we have one plat on the one record plat tonight, RP-8443-2020, Old Town Parcels A and B, Block F. This is the Fishman property and the Old Town Plaza property. The plat has been reviewed by staff and is ready for the commission's approval tonight.
Is this a change? Because this project's been around for a while. Did we not do a plat earlier?
It was a condition of the approval. It hadn't been done yet, so they're satisfying that condition so they can get their building permits for the construction.
So this is really the first plat that's been done for that.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Any other questions?
No.
Okay, if not, is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve. Let me get back to it. I move we approve record plat RP 8443-2020 as presented.
Second.
All right, it's moved and seconded. Commissioner Wessel,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaufman,
Aye.
Commissioner Winborn,
Aye.
Commissioner Cantrell,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye as well. That passes unanimously. All right, next up, we have a consent agenda tonight with one item. Any questions on the consent agenda?
Now, this is a one-year extension. Do we then can this be perpetuated indefinitely, year to year?
The city code only allows for one-year extension.
Okay.
So if the construction doesn't start within the next year, the site plan does expire, I would have to come back to the planning commission for another review and approval.
Thank you, Greg.
All right, any other questions on the?
Just a comment. I was wondering what happened to this. Now I know.
All right. Yeah, Frank, did you want to say
Yeah,
something?
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to point out that the governor's order, actually from March 5th, which was renewed in October, does allow state and local government, that is state agencies and local governments like municipalities, to extend on their own certain extensions, which could include this extension. They do have to issue an order. I know it's been talked about at the city, but I don't believe it's been finalized. That is possible either now or later on, that would have an impact over and above your decision now to extend for a year. And that's based on the pandemic and the general rule that the extension would go until, I believe it is 60 days past the expiration of the state of emergency, which was from last March and is now still in effect.
Mhm.
Just so that you know, that could have an impact, but that shouldn't affect your decision tonight, because right now it would be for just the 1 year that is allowed.
Okay. And anything like that would come from the council, not from us anyway, right?
Actually, it comes from the top leader of the locality. So that would either be the mayor or the city manager.
Okay. All right, we'll keep this posted, but I guess in the meantime, if there are no other questions on the consent agenda, is there a motion, please?
Chairman, I move that we accept the consent agenda as read into the record.
Second,
It's moved and seconded. Commissioner Wessel,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaufman,
Aye.
Commissioner Winborn,
aye.
Commissioner Cantrell,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye as well. Thank you very much. That is approved unanimously. All right, now for a recommendation to the mayor and city council on SDP-8597-2020, the request for a schematic development plan for the construction of 461,100 square feet of commercial development at 700 North Frederick Avenue in the MXD mixed development zone, mixed use development zone, excuse me. And this again is a recommendation to mayor and city council. Our record is closed, so we won't be hearing any more public testimony tonight, but we will be having a discussion and final action from us on a recommendation. So Caroline, are you doing this? Who's doing this one?
I'm doing it.
Okay.
So if we can pull up page 76, please. I can be, well, we can go one more page after that. There we go. Nope, back to 76. There we go. Good evening, everyone. This is a recommendation to the mayor and city council for schematic development plan application SDP 8597-2020. The subject property shown on the monitor is known as 700 North Frederick Avenue, and the property is generally bounded by Interstate 270 to the southwest, Montgomery Village Avenue to the southeast, North Frederick Avenue to the northeast, and a warehouse located at 800 North Frederick Avenue to the northwest. Primary access to the site is from North Frederick Avenue, and the property is zoned MXD, mixed use development. Subject property is currently developed with approximately 500 square feet of office space, associated parking, bioretention ponds, and open areas. And the site was originally developed for IBM and was most recently vacated by Leidos. We can go to the next slide, please. The applicant, Madden, filed an SDP application on September 15th, 2020, and requests approval for the construction of 461,100 square feet. I guess my slide is off by 100 square feet, I just noticed, of commercial, employment, industrial development, recreational and open spaces, and an infrastructure plan to accommodate future development. Next slide. The property owners received approval of sketch plan SK 8180-2019 for commercial, employment, and industrial uses, which allows up to 650,000 square feet of development split over 2 blocks, equating to an FAR of approximately 0.34 over 44 acres. The sketch plan permits up to 10% of the redeveloped floor area as retail commercial uses and up to 100% of employment, office, or other commercial institutional uses. Next slide. So this is the overall plan. The current SDP implements and conforms with the approved sketch plan. A virtual joint public hearing for this application was held on December 21st, 2020. 2 members of the public provided oral testimony at the hearing. Planning Commission held its record open until 5 p.m. on January 27th, 2021. No additional public testimony was received prior to the close of the record, and there are currently 89 exhibits in the record. If we can go to the next slide. Comments discussed by the mayor and city council and the planning commission and the public during the public hearing related to the use of mezzanine space in the flex buildings, the quality of the flex buildings architecture, the phasing of development, the necessity for the environmental waiver and tree variance requests, and questions about sustainability plans. In response to the joint public hearing discussion, the applicant submitted a supplemental response letter, which is Exhibit 72 in your packet. And they've also submitted revised plans, which are in Exhibits 79 through 88. Next slide. So the rest of this presentation will provide an overview of the plan with a specific focus on the public hearing discussion and the applicant's responses to those comments. This is a rendering, an aerial rendering that the applicant provided at the joint public hearing. It's just a good way to orient you to some of the new development. The property proposes 2 retail commercial buildings along the property's North Frederick Avenue frontage, which you see kind of in the bottom right corner of the slide. These commercial buildings are intended to serve as a convenient and attractive amenity for the employers and employees in the project's 2 flex buildings, which are in the upper left corner, as well as for nearby residents. Next slide. So this is lot 1, which is a 6,100 square foot retail building with associated automobile filling station. And it is permitted under Block B of the sketch plan. The square footage of the building increased by 500 square feet since the joint public hearing. And that's the only change to the square footage of the entire site since the joint public hearing. And it remains well within the cap on retail square footage for this portion of the site. And you can see all of the other, parking is, there are 84 parking spaces. I think they're only required to have a 26, or I can't remember the exact number, but a fraction of that. And the parking ratio is a retail parking ratio. We can go to the next slide. On lot 4 is a 5,000 square foot restaurant use. The plan for this lot includes a drive-through designed in accordance with the city's best practices for drive-throughs memo, which is also included as an exhibit. It's number 66, and you can see that they are also well parked for the use. Next slide. These are lots 5 and 6, which are the centerpiece of the project. And they are 2 centrally located flex buildings, each expected to contain approximately 225,000 square feet of gross floor area. The buildings are designed to accommodate a wide potential range of commercial, employment, industrial uses as approved in the sketch plan. They're all listed there on the slide, including integrated light manufacturing, research and development, laboratories, office, distribution, warehousing, and several other uses. Flex buildings are oriented around an interior loading area, which is shown in between the 2 orange buildings in gray, which will be shielded from view by decorative walls on both ends of each building. In its joint public hearing response letter, the applicant elaborated on the discussion raised at the joint public hearing regarding the potential for mezzanine space in each of these buildings. So according to the applicant, the heights of the flex buildings, which is 50 feet, allow for the accommodation of approximately 25,000 square feet of mezzanine space in each building. And that square footage is already reflected in the total gross square footage proposed for the buildings. The mezzanine space could accommodate either mechanical or office and lab space, depending on the needs of any individual tenant. So these buildings have not been leased yet, and because there are no tenants that have been identified, it is undetermined how much mezzanine space will ultimately be developed. The building's construction permits flexibility for the mezzanine spaces, and the final square footage and parking requirements will be determined at final site plan and through subsequent amendments to final site plan as the tenant mix changes over time. Staff is comfortable that despite the lack of clarity at this time regarding the demand and/or use of the mezzanine space, there is enough flexibility in the parking requirements to accommodate the maximum proposed mezzanine space. And additionally, the mezzanine space could provide opportunities for enhanced architectural design elements, which we would encourage. Next slide. I just wanted to bring up the circulation slide because we really didn't cover it in the joint public hearing too much, and there was never any discussion about it, but just wanted to bring it up to, so it's been covered. The primary site access is at North Frederick Avenue in the same location as an existing full movement signalized intersection, kind of in the big oval circled area in the middle of the slide. That's identified as parcel D, and a secondary right in, right out access at parcel A, which is to the left of that main entrance. And in total, there are 4 pedestrian access points from North Frederick Avenue into the site, which we're happy to see since this had previously been a somewhat closed site. Those the 4 different circles are the pedestrian access areas. In addition to the 2 entrance roads, the applicant has provided a north-south interior roadway that's designed to both separate the retail uses from the flex buildings and also to distribute vehicular and pedestrian traffic between the various lots. And although the roads will continue to remain private, the site used the city's commercial service road typology for the primary access point, including 8-foot sidewalks, 12-foot planting strips, and a median. And the secondary access point and the interior road are also proposed to be built to various configurations of the commercial service road standard. So no road code waivers were required. We're supportive of the circulation plan and pleased that the redevelopment provides multiple new pedestrian and other non-vehicular access points to and through the previously access restricted site. And we are also appreciative that they did not need to request any road code waivers. Next slide. The applicant's amenity spaces and green areas remain unchanged from the joint public hearing. The applicant has also provided supplemental letters in support of the environmental waiver request and the tree removal variance. Our environmental and stormwater management staff has worked closely with the applicant on these issues and is comfortable that both the waiver and tree variance requests are the minimal necessary to redevelop the site, and that the redevelopment actually serves to improve the environmental quality of the site, adding an additional 2.29 acres of tree canopy, removing some impervious surfaces, replacing existing lawn panels with trees, and increasing the naturalized area. And the Stream Valley buffer will be placed under a Category 1 forest conservation easement. Next slide. Consistent with the sketch plan and the Frederick Avenue Corridor Master Plan, the project provides for the continuation of the planned Frederick Avenue Linear Park. Park incorporates an 8-foot shared path, numerous plantings along the property's North Frederick Avenue frontage, with shade trees, ornamental trees, and landscape planting beds to create a linear park and a welcoming presence along an important city commercial corridor. I think there are also some photo simulations of the employee amenity areas within the development. Staff is pleased that the applicant plans to develop the entire North Frederick Avenue Linear Park in this phase of development, even though several of the lots won't be developed in this SDP. They're going to do the entire length of North Frederick Avenue Linear Park. Next slide. During the joint public hearing, concerns were raised about the quality of the design of the flex buildings. You can see in this slide, the initial architecture presented at the joint public hearing is on the top, and the revised preliminary architecture is on the bottom. Given the prominent location of these buildings, the mayor and council and planning commission voiced concerns regarding the lack of glazing windows, the warehouse style of the buildings, the quality of the materials, and the continuity of design across the development. In response to these concerns, the applicant has submitted revised illustrative renderings, which are in Exhibit 75. And preliminary building elevations have also provided additional guidance within the revised design guidelines to address these concerns. Next slide. The revised architecture for the flex buildings provides additional articulation to reduce mass, bulk, and uniformity. The facades have been updated to include a masonry aesthetic. In addition to the masonry, texture, color variation, and pattern, building facades are further articulated by using horizontal metal extrusions. Additionally, the entryways have been enhanced with diverse design elements and a range of building materials that include additional glass, metal panels, and surface texture and detailing. And there are opportunities for additional glazing and fenestration at other locations in the building facade, depending on different tenant operations. Staff is encouraged by the revised preliminary architecture and believes it represents a substantial improvement over originally proposed elevations. The revised architecture is significantly more interesting, contemporary in style, less industrial, and provides a more interesting mix of quality materials, glazing, and pedestrian scale features. The improvements in the building articulation helps to break the massing of an otherwise extremely long building facade, and the variations in height and materials at the pedestrian entrances also contribute to the reduction of the massing of the flex buildings. As tenants fit out portions of these buildings, staff would encourage the applicant to seek all opportunities for additional pedestrian scale entrance features and mezzanine glazing to ensure that the final building product meets the goals of the preliminary design and projects a visually interesting facade. I will note that this is preliminary architecture, and again, because we do not know who the tenants are, the building facades are likely to change not only at final site plan, but potentially as tenants move in and out of the building through the course of amendments to final plans might need to address changes in tenants over time. Next slide. In response to questions about architectural continuity between the flex buildings and the commercial buildings on North Frederick Avenue, the applicants have provided a sample building perspective for a future building that reflects the building materials and design patterns established for lots 5 and 6. The applicant also noted that the design guidelines set standards for a variety of design elements, including patterns of scale, form, materials, and proportion to assist in establishing a consistent form of development, both internally within the project as well as externally within the surrounding area. Although staff does not believe that all of the buildings need to match to be considered compatible, the inclusion of building materials identified for use in the flex buildings into the facades of the commercial structures on lots 1 through 4 is highly recommended. Also, the continuity can be achieved through site design, which includes furnishings, wayfinding, lighting, and signage that can bring the whole project together. Next slide. In response to several inquiries at the joint public hearing regarding sustainability practices, the applicant has included a description of its planned practices in its response memo. The applicant anticipates providing electronic vehicle charging stations with solar panels, a cool roof designed to reflect sunlight, LED lamps for all interior and exterior lighting, low flow plumbing, and low E glass. The applicant also notes that through the addition of 230 new trees, the tree canopy on the site will be increased by 2.29 acres, and they will also be recycling a good amount of the material from the existing structures, 42% to be used on the existing site for the flex buildings and site work, and another 31% to be recycled at local recycling center. They did mention, it's not on the slide, that they have investigated doing green roofs, but because of the needs of potential tenants in biotechnology and lab space that often use the roof area for their own needs, a green roof was not possible on these buildings. Staff would encourage the applicant to continue to seek additional sustainability measures through the final site plan stage of development, including solar panels on parking fields, additional sustainable building materials. We're encouraged that the recycling of a significant amount of material from the existing buildings is being done. And finally, I just wanted to mention on the phasing that this represents one phase of development. There have been some questions about the lots that weren't being developed now. They would be developed parcels H and J under separate SDP applications, and the current application represents about 88.5% of the total land area of the site right now, and the others would come in at another point. Staff has reviewed the applicant's revised plans and is of the opinion that the applicant has adequately addressed the questions raised by both the mayor and city council and the planning commission, as well as the public. Staff is supportive of the submitted schematic development plan. Plan meets and accomplishes the purposes, objectives, and minimal standards and requirements of the NXD zone. Additionally, the proposed plan furthers the visions and goals of the city master plan by providing additional employment opportunities in the North Frederick Avenue corridor. Development will also provide a larger tax base, which will generate additional revenue to support the city's economy. Development will not adversely affect the character of the surrounding neighborhood. The proposed preliminary architecture and design guidelines ensure that the project will be of a superior quality and compatible and harmonious with the surrounding neighborhoods. That is the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Caroline. And I know the applicants team is listening in, and my compliments to them for addressing a whole host of concerns and issues and questions that we all brought up through the earlier stages in this, and they've done a nice job of offering up solutions and answers for those. So I appreciate that. In terms of process, so if this moves through a final SDP approval with mayor and council based on our recommendation, would they come back with a preliminary site plan, or would they go directly to final site plan with this? Or is that really something to be discussed later with the applicant's team?
Well, the SDP serves as the preliminary site plan. So they would come back for final site plan, probably, well, I don't want to speak for them, but they could do it all in one final site plan, or portions, just do the flex buildings, and or vice versa.
Okay, because I was trying to just frame up the discussion about the revised facade schemes that they presented, and make sure that we're discussing this at a reasonable level of detail based on what the next likely submission would be. So I guess with that, commissioners, any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
question about parking. First of all, I'd like to also compliment the applicant on the changes that were made and the attention to detail that has been paid this time. It really looks, it's a very good, it's a better looking project today than it was a couple of weeks ago. My question pertains to the parking capabilities. I see that we've got 87 extra spaces when you take lots 1 and 4 into the equation for extra access parking. We don't know who the tenants are going to be at this point. And my concern is, in the future, if those tenants have requirements for additional spaces and the 87 are inadequate, those 87 additional spaces that come out of lots 1 and 4, my concern is, do we then start impinging upon the green space that's available, or are there other accommodations that have to be made?
So the parking ratio for lots 1 and 4 is our retail parking ratio. So even if the current scenario of a restaurant and a convenience store, gas station changed, that parking ratio would remain the same. They're restricted by the amount of square footage that's approved in the SDP. So the parking requirements wouldn't really change substantially. I mean, it might change a little bit if there's slight changes in the square footage, but we wouldn't anticipate that they would ever meet or exceed the number of parking spaces that are on those particular lots. The other thing about the parking that I think may have been noted at the joint public hearing, and why we were comfortable with this kind of unusual parking ratio for the flex buildings, is because they also have the potential to make additional parking spaces in the interior where the truck parking would otherwise be. If somebody came in and required more vehicle parking, they could create more parking spaces there. So we feel comfortable that they would not need to go into their green space to create as much parking as they would need.
Right. So the spillover would then be first lots 1 and 4, and then if necessary between the buildings.
Yeah, and they'll have cross parking easements so that anybody could park in any of the lots and for any of the uses.
And I guess in the unlikely scenario that either lot 1 or 4, whatever goes on there generates more parking demand than what's being provided. And then lots 3 and or H and J come along, that would then be a prerequisite for developing those, which is to create more parking that would support the adjacent lots. I suppose that could be one.
Yeah, I mean, they would all continue to share,
Yeah.
space.
But if there was a correction to be made, there are those lots to help absorb that. If unlikely, but if it did happen, there's some opportunities there.
Yeah.
All right, Phil.
To that point, I think looking at the site plan, the last thing I'm concerned about with this site is them running out of parking. I mean, unless somebody starts hosting rock concerts in their warehouse space, they're not going to run out of parking. I mean,
I'd go, yeah.
I guess I had a handful of questions that Caroline, maybe you can answer, maybe we can defer to later. I don't think any of them are, and some of them very well may be final site plan type questions. So feel free to tell me to hold that till we get down the line a little bit. The linear park renderings, I think, look great along Frederick Avenue. The only thing I did not see in there is any sort of provision for lighting. And it looks like a fabulous park during the day, but one that could be a little scary to walk down at night. I'm assuming, when we get to final site plan, that there are city standards for lighting both out at the street edge as well as pedestrian scale lighting at the curvy path.
Yeah, well, that would be something that we would look at final site plan. That's correct.
Okay. A clarification on the architecture. I agree. I think the architecture has grown and improved by leaps and bounds since the initial view. It's always a good strategy when going for approval, is to show something really bad and then wow everybody with the with the amazing version. Is it actual stone on the facade or a stone veneer, or are we looking at something proposed as a stamped concrete where we see the stone pattern?
I think it's a stone veneer, but again, it's also preliminary, so those materials could change. They do have design guidelines that limit the types of materials that they can use on the base, so we can ensure that it is.
Well, I'd cut to the chase on that comment and say that what we see as stone, we don't want to end up with split face block.
Right.
Or a stone form liner in a concrete form with gray concrete.
Fair enough.
Yep, I would agree there. Again, on the sustainability front, I think the applicant did a reasonable job at addressing the preliminary concerns on sustainability. Flipping through the packet, I did not see anything detailed as far as stormwater calculations or stormwater volume. I'm assuming that's a final plan thing, or has that been done?
Stormwater, there's a preliminary stormwater plan that gets reviewed by our public works staff and has been approved. The requirement is that it gets approved prior to coming to the planning commission for your recommendation. But it's not something that the planning commission actually has reviews. So it's not in there because we just have included the cover pages that have approved it.
Well, then
same thing for final.
I'll cut to my one concern. The last thing I want to do is, try and parse stormwater calcs, but the only water-based sustainability concern I have, and that a number of people raised at the joint public hearing, was the impact to the stream buffer for the additional direct discharge. And I was going through at a relatively detailed level, looking at the catchment basins and the BMPs that are overflowing into that line of storm piping. I couldn't answer two questions. One, how big that pipe is, what's the pipe diameter? And two, how much water do we actually expect to flow out of that? Because my initial reaction was, this is crazy, we shouldn't be dumping all the storm water into the creek. Then I looked at it a little bit more detail, and just looking at an unlabeled piping plan, looks like it's actually not picking up that much direct drainage. It looks like it's by and large picking up overflows from the bioretention, with the exception of 1 or 2 catch basins in the parking lot. So that's why I was just asking, at a high level, how much are we expecting to dump out of there? Because that is a concern on the sustainability side for me.
Well, Phil, and it's a good question. I think it's also should probably be framed up as a net impact because there's already impervious area there now, building roof and parking lots they're doing something, right?
Yeah, and a lot of the stormwater on the north side of the site looks to be tying in, again, the overflows from the bioretention looks to be tying in and dumping into the existing retention pond. And so that to that question of existing, again, I don't know, I'm surmising that most of the site as it is now drains to the detention pond, and otherwise we wouldn't be adding a stream discharge. So it's a question, you know, A, why can't we drain this side of the site into that same pond and avoid dumping in the stream? And B, you know, are we making, you know, really over concerned about this because there's not going to be that much outfall out of that anyway? You know, understanding that staff has reviewed this, but it's something that the public had raised, and so it'd be good to at least get a little clarity on.
It's a good point. Could we leave it at having staff report back at site plan review the net impact and the actual impact from that calc you're talking about, so they can get a chance to actually frame it up as a.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Again, I don't see it as something, again, given that we're at SDP, it's not something that would keep me from, you know, wholeheartedly moving forward with this, but
Okay.
you know, we need a little bit more information to address the public's concern, and you know,
That's a good point.
there's bare minimum compliance, and then there's good design, and they're different things. So
Great point.
let's talk about it. And to that point, just from a staff standpoint, and I'm a little rusty on the city's sustainability and green codes, whether I know Montgomery County drives heavily towards a LEED silver. What is the city's compliance path from IECC, IGCC versus LEED? Is there options? Is one preferred over the other? Because we talk about a lot of sustainability stuff that is sort of high level, low hanging fruit, but isn't, you know, on par with a LEED certification.
I'm gonna see if Greg will answer that for me because it's an ever evolving set of standards, and I think he's more up on it than I am.
So we do have a green building code. It's not LEED required. So there's no requirement for them to necessarily hit LEED silver or LEED platinum, for example. But they do have standards that our code reviewers believe are consistent, if not more stringent than LEED.
Is it a city written code, or is it one of the international?
I think it's
codes?
the green building code that they adopted.
Okay.
All right.
I have my own opinions, but that's not the topic of this hearing.
All right. Anything else, Phil?
Nope, that was it for me.
I see Danny's hand up. Danny?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. And thank you, Caroline, for such a thorough presentation. If we could, the one thing I did want to mention is I'm really excited that the applicant is committed to, and I think I did the quick calculation of 73%. I wrote it down, combination of either recycle or reuse. That's a huge commitment. That is amazing, and I think that should be spotlighted. But if we could go back to the rendering that you had and look at that, and I just want to ask about that huge open space.
Hey, Danny, can you reference a packet page number?
It's number 7, I believe, Caroline.
Slide number 7, page 81.
Yeah, but I think it's on your presentation. It was 7.
Let's see if
at the
that
top of it says SDP 859-7-2020. It was their rendering of the 2 large flex buildings.
We'll start with 81. Is that it?
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Now, so that whole green open space right there in the center, that's where the employee amenities will be?
No, so that large green area in the center are the lots that are not being developed as part of this SDP.
Okay, and I wanted to be clear about that. So,
Yeah.
So
That
that's a
will
future.
not-
That's a future thing, right?
Right, that will not
Okay.
remain green like
Okay,
that.
I was getting overly ambitious. I was like, boy, that'd be great if it could stay that way. But
Yeah,
eh.
it looks a little like a soccer field at the moment.
Yes, it
but,
does. It looks beautiful, but you know, okay, I got my hopes up a little bit, but Okay, I just wanted to be very clear about that. Thank you.
Yeah, the employee amenity areas, one is behind, to the left of the parking area, just
Yeah, okay.
north of the
Of
flex
270.
building. Yeah, and
Yeah,
then there's
right,
another
270, yeah.
another smaller one in the kind of tucked in the corner of the slide, almost off the screen.
Right. Okay. All right. I just wanted to be very clear because I was getting a little excited about,
Yeah.
but I thought that was overly ambitious. That I thought that would never be, because it's such a beautiful large space. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anything else, Danny?
No. It was just I just wanted to spotlight the fact that they've made a huge commitment of 73% reuse and recycle, and I thought that was really a leaps and bounds above anything I've ever heard. I don't know, John can correct me if not, of any other projects, or Caroline, or even Greg. I don't know of any project that's ever had that high a level of commitment. So I just thought that was really wonderful to hear.
Well, I guess we hope soon that Lake Forest is in that category, right? Did I say that out loud?
Right.
Let me make sure I get around the horn here. Sharon, anything you want to jump in on?
Yeah, I was just going to ask about the restaurant drive-throughs. I know you said it was a best practices. And I guess at final site plan, we'll see when they have a tenant, what that's going to look like.
Yeah, there'll be a lot more detail at final site plan of exactly how that works. So for the SDP, we wanted to make sure that we think it can function, and so that's about the level of detail we've been able to see so far, and we feel comfortable that they will be able to do a drive-through. But that best practices memo will be kind of their guide to how much stacking is required, and where there are pedestrian conflicts, how to resolve those, that kind of thing. And that'll all get detailed out at the final site plan.
And I guess the convenience store, it's the same concept, whether it's a Sheetz or something else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it doesn't really have a drive-through technically. It's obviously got filling station islands, but I think to be very kind of specific or zone in on this a bit, the work we did over at the Kentland site with the drive-through had a lot of thoughtful work done by staff and by, at the time, the civil engineer, to figure out things like how you don't have cars crossing major pedestrian crosswalks, at least not, within, not too close, and with enough distance for people to kind of see what's going on and have clear separation. How to get cars stacked so they're not blocking, through traffic on the parking areas or on a through street. And it wasn't easy. I mean, it took some real creative thinking, and I think it was really, really well done. And so the point is, all those learnings don't go for naught, right? They become then really the threshold for doing any of them in the future, and this will be no different. I mean, to their credit, I think diagrammatically they seem to show at least a general embrace of how that would work. But clearly, it'll take a little bit more careful design and layout and really understanding some of those nuances of how things intersect and interact. And to Sharon, or to Caroline's point, there seems to be room to make all that happen when it's time to get down to that level of calculation. But I know people will be very, very careful to look at that. It's interesting you brought up the convenience store side, because I'm not sure we have that same level of scrutiny for that, or haven't had to, or haven't done that. But it's worth kind of, I think you make a good point. It's worth taking some of those same learnings and thinking about the same things, like how natural pedestrian paths do or don't intersect significant vehicular pathways, and that there's logical ways for people to walk through safely. So I think that's a point that probably ought to stay high on the list of things to look at as we see the other side as well.
So I guess my point is that I agree with everything everybody else was saying, because I did listen in on the hearing. And I think this is a much, it's visually much more attractive, and I think it flows better. And I'm very grateful for the sustainability factors and the green space. And I think it works. I think, having a filling station there and a restaurant drive-through is needed in the area. I think it takes a whole nother level north. So,
yeah.
that's flat.
All right, Lloyd, anything tonight on this one? You're on mute. Lloyd, you're on mute, so we didn't even hear you say no, I don't think.
Nothing I had said before. Thank you, John.
Okay, very good. All right, are there any other concerns or questions about the plan? Our next step in this process tonight is to move for a recommendation. Or does anyone have any reservations about the staff's recommendation on our recommendation? Anything at all?
No.
No? All right. Any other points that any of the commissioners would like to amplify in our recommendation back to the council? Okay, I'm seeing everybody look the other way. All right, then, I think we're ready for a motion.
Chair Bauer, I don't know, I didn't formally read the staff recommendation. If you would like me to do that, I'm happy to do it.
Sure, yeah, just so that the record looks like
Sure.
we were supposed to. Thank you.
Staff recommends that the Planning Commission, based on the evidence and testimony submitted to the record and the findings in the final staff analysis, recommend approval of SDP 8597-2020 to the mayor and city council with 2 conditions that are in your record.
Okay. Excellent. So are there any questions on that the recommendation for our recommendation? No? All right, is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning Commission, based on the evidence and testimony submitted into the record and the findings in the staff analysis, recommend approval of SDP 81466-2019 to the mayor and council with the conditions. As mentioned.
Second.
What,
Danny?
wait, what is it that he read in? I thought it was 8597.
That's what I heard.
8597.
8597-2020.
Am I looking at the wrong?
No, he looked it wrong. You said the wrong, because you said 2019. Just state it again, just the number, please.
Sorry, that was on the staff report that I had on the packet.
Okay.
Sorry, it's SDP. Let me redo it then. I move that the Planning Commission, based on the evidence and testimony submitted into the record and the findings of the staff analysis, recommend approval of schematic development plan SDP 8597-2020 to the mayor and city council with the conditions. Thank you, Danny.
Restate the second.
Okay, thank you. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Commissioner Wessel,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaufman,
Aye.
Commissioner Winborn,
Aye.
Commissioner Cantrell, and I vote aye as well. It passes unanimously. For the applicants team listening in, nice work. Thank you very much for seeing this through and addressing our concerns. We're looking forward to seeing the final plan. Thank you. Caroline, thank you for all the work you and
Yes.
your colleagues have done on shepherding.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you for a great presentation.
Thanks.
All right. All right, that takes us to our site plan agenda tonight. We have one for AFP-8729-2020. This is an amended final architecture for 5 lots that addresses 309 through 313 Central Avenue and 212 through 220 East Deer Park Drive in the RA Low Density Residential Zone. And again, this is an amendment to final site plan. And presenting from staff, excuse me, Sam Copeland is on the list. Are you on? You are on. Good evening, Sam.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. Tech team, please display packet page 302. Let's see, are we going to page 302 in the packet?
I wonder if they're having, there we go.
There we go, perfect. All right, so this is for application AFP-8729-2020, requesting approval of the final architecture for the 5 lots at 309 and 313 Central Avenue and 212, 216, and 220 East Deer Park Drive. The subject properties are all located in the RA Low Density Residential Zone and were approved by the Planning Commission as part of SP 7955-2018 and SP 7970-2018. At the time of the site plan approval, The lots were split zoned and located partially within both the jurisdiction of Montgomery County and the city of Gaithersburg. Annexation X-7969-2018 annexed all portions of the mentioned lots that were in Montgomery County into the city of Gaithersburg's jurisdiction. The subject application proposes new home styles than what was originally approved by the Planning Commission. In addition, the new homes are also proposed to be sited further from the street than originally approved. The amendment also includes relocating the driveway for Lot 27 from Central Avenue to East Deer Park Drive and the final architecture and siting for Lot 28. It should be noted that Chapter 24 of the zoning ordinance requires that staff review the other lots as a minor amendment prior to the issuance of a building permit. Here tonight to present the application and answer any questions you may have is Mr. Marty Mitchell, CEO of Mitchell & Best Homes.
All right, very good. Thank you. Good evening. Do you still want the presentation up or the
trying to see where our
okay. Sam, do you know what we should have up?
PowerPoint started.
Yes, if we could please move to page, let's go to page 361 of the packet.
61.
Actually, I think the packet page for the presentation is actually 527.
Yep, there it is. Thank you, Greg.
All right, are you ready for me?
Yep, please, anytime you're ready.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Sam indicated, my name is Marty Mitchell. I'm with Mitchell & Best. When we came to you a few years ago with the architecture for these lots, we really were not 100% sure if we were going to build these out or sell the lots. As we got about a year into the selling process, it became clear that we wanted to move forward with building out the property. We marketed the original lot houses that we submitted to you. Unfortunately, they were not met with a real strong support from the buying community. So we have introduced a new line of houses that we call the Hometown Collection here. It's a pretty flexible architecture. It can have no garage. It can have a garage on the side like a standard single family detached, or it can have a garage in the rear, which is what is required on lot 27, as Sam indicated. So this is a elevation rendering of what we call the modern farmhouse Oakland elevation. This would be with a detached garage in the back of the house as opposed to on the side. Most of the houses will be on the side except for lot 27. Next slide, please. This is the revised site plan. Pretty similar to what you saw before. As Sam indicated, we did decide to try to move the houses a little bit farther from East Deer Park. There were some complaints from customers about traffic and wanted to be a little farther back. We also thought that with the sightings that we're showing now, it'll create a very nice streetscape and a nice presence for the houses about 4 or 5 feet above the elevation of East Deer Park Drive. So create nice front yards, and these are exceptionally deep lots. They go back to 1888. They're 320 to 340 feet deep on lots 24, 25, and 26. Lots 27 and 28 are about 200 feet deep. This goes back to the horse and carriage days when you'd put your barn on the back of the lots. I know you've seen many of these throughout the city. So we can afford to have a larger front yard and still have people if they want to, they can do things in the backyard as well. So this is the siding with the new houses, which the footprint of the new houses are smaller than what we had shown you a few years ago. We do have a little more impervious area for the driveway, but the house footprints are smaller and offset most of that additional impervious area. Lot 27, you can see more clearly what Sam indicated. If the garage is behind the house, the access would be from East Deer Park as opposed to Central Avenue. And you all know that piece of Central Avenue very well. And it's probably not the greatest location to have a driveway. So moving it, I think, is benefit from a traffic standpoint. Next slide, please. So the first house site that we're asking for approval is the Kensington. This is also a modern farmhouse, similar to the other rendering you saw. It has vertical siding on the right side here with the turn gable. And then it has horizontal siding where the door and the other two windows. It has lots of glass, 3062 windows as standard on the front of the house. This is a first floor owner suite, and then there's 2 small bedrooms on the upstairs level. The house starts at about 2,000 square feet. We do have, as you'll see as I go through the presentation, a significant number of options that can add square footage to the house if the customer so desires. But the majority of that 2,000 square feet is on the first floor, very open floor plan between the kitchen and the family room and the dining room on this plan, and a large owner suite. Next slide. This is a rendering of the same Kensington house with the arts and crafts elevation. This changes out the roof pitches a little bit, the porch changes slightly, and you get some stone bases for the columns when you go with this design. Next slide. And this is the Craftsman elevation. You get a little bit of a swooped gable roof. You get a mix of siding types. You get like a cedar shake in the gables, and then the typical horizontal siding on the other parts of the house. And you have a little different column arrangements to break up the streetscape. Next slide. So this is the architectural drawings of the Kensington, the first floor owner suite. You can see the front of the house is the modern farmhouse that we saw the picture of. The left side elevation, you'll see the back part of that is the owner suite on the back of the house. That's where it's located. You have a rear elevation that shows the lower part is the first floor owner suite coming out towards you, and then the second floor part is the small bedrooms. And then on the right side, you've got a bump out for the family room. And then you're looking at the other side of the owner suite on the back side of the house. We have some variety of window elevation or window options. You can see that dashed in on the right side elevation. You'll see some other variations to that as we go forward. You can see the egress window on the back part of the house on the right side of the elevation, which is required if it's going to be a legal bedroom. Next slide. This is the 4 sides of the Craftsman elevation. You saw the rendering of that. The sides and rears are pretty similar. The left side does show some options for the little hopper windows that you get in the basement, and the optional window on the right side elevation. Next slide, please. Next slide, 535. There we go. So 535 is showing all the different front door options. If you look at the front doors, the first row, you have all 3 elevation types. It has basically a 3/4, almost full glass front door option. The The second row is all three elevations, but it has a quarter light at the top part of the door, and then a transom that comes standard with the front door options. Next slide. This is showing optional front porch elevation on the modern farmhouse. This is extending out to the right and wrapping around the corner. So you'll see that on the right side elevation. You also see there where, in addition to the two windows that we've shown before, you can also get two atrium doors there in that location when you have the side porch, so that you can exit out the dining room onto the side porch if you so choose. Next slide, please. And then this is the same front porch elevation with the arts and crafts or craftsman front elevation. We did not show the left side because they're all the same throughout the various house types and what we had shown on previous slides. Next slide. And then this is the arts and crafts elevation, again, showing that wraparound porch and how the column details change as you go to this front porch option. Next slide. So here we're showing that they have the option of choosing an optional morning room, which is towards the back of the house. That shows up on the left side elevations. And then also they can get another porch extension on the back of the house that runs along the side of the house and accesses to the backyard. So we're showing a little bit of two things here. One, in the upper slides in particular, you'll see the morning room where the two windows are outside of the porch area, and then you see the porch extension that's available in the back side of the house. And it shows how that affects the rear elevation if you get those two different designs. Next slide. So this was showing, we had shown porch extension number 3 in the last slide. If they do not get the morning room, there's porch extension number 2 that's available. So that's where you see the doorway there on the left side elevations. They can get a smaller porch there instead of getting the morning room. And then they can also combine that small porch with porch extension number 3 and go all the way across the side theirs. So I know that's a little confusing, option on an option, but that's gives enough variety for the customer. Next slide. And this is just showing the optional family room extension. They can bump out the family room extension a couple of feet, and that shows on the side, and then on the partial front elevation up in the upper right-hand corner, that allows for an additional window in the family room, and that's what's showing there in that partial front elevation. Next slide. Here we're showing the option for an additional owner suite up on the second floor. This bumps up from what is the first floor owners and gives 2 owner suite option, and shows the change in the rear elevations with the additional windows. We think this could be a very popular house because of intergenerational living. We've had people looking at it for that purpose because they want to have 2 owner suites. So that's what we're showing here in this design. Next slide. And this is showing the optional 20 by 20 garage attached on the side of the modern farmhouse elevation of the Kensington. That's our base. We do include glass or windows in the garage door to break up that elevation a little bit. Next slide. And here we're showing the 20 by 20 garage with both the arts and crafts on the top row and the craftsman on the second row. So the 20 by 20 garage is the same with all three elevations. Next slide. Now, we also offer the customer a 25 by 25 garage option. So that's what's showing here with the modern farmhouse elevation. You get a little bit of a pop return gable when you get the bigger garage to break up that roof line. Those are fake windows. I mean, they're real windows, but they go into the attic space. So we'd be painting those black for the customer, so you wouldn't be able to see into that attic space above the garage. Next slide. This is the 25 by 25 with the arts and crafts and the craftsman elevation. Again, you get a little bit of a different turn gable, and you get a little bit of that cedar siding up in that turn gable to match with the turn gables on the front elevation of the house. Next slide. So now we're showing it with a 20 by 20 garage and the optional walkout conditions. So if the grade would allow and it falls along the side, there would be double windows, and you could also get a door down at the basement level that's shown in the rear elevation. We also are showing that we offer an areaway. That's the partial elevations in the upper right corner. They get a double door with that design, and then the concrete steps out of the basement area. The number of steps will depend on the grade conditions. That's why we've shown that as a partial. When we come in for final siting, like we'll show for lot 28, we'll show clearer as to how many risers are coming out of the basement areaway. Next slide. And we offer the option of a detached garage, which my guess is that's probably only going to be on lot 27, but these are showing the various elevations for the detached garage that can be purchased with the house. So the bottom row is the 20 by 20, looking at four sides of the detached 20 by 20, and the upper two rows are showing it as a 25 by 25 with that same turn gable over the garage doors. Next slide. And this is just a picture of a Oakland model with the 25 by 25 attached garage. You can get kind of it's still an aluminum door, but you can get a wood look door if someone so chooses. And we offer an option for black trimmed windows, as you see in this design. That seems to be something people like. This house, as it says, starts at about 2,300. Can go over 3,000 depending on the options they pick. This is a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath. The 4 bedrooms are all up on the second floor, and then there's well over 1,000 square feet that can be finished in the basement. Next slide. This is the rendering of the arts and crafts elevation for that house with an attached 20 by 20 garage. Next slide. And this is the craftsman elevation in the Oakland. Again, the swooped roof and getting some, cedar siding in the turn gables, both above the front door and then in the larger turn gable with the swoop roof line. Next slide. And I'll go a little bit quicker. I know I don't want to take too much of the time, but this is showing the same thing that we showed with the Kensington. This is the modern farmhouse elevations. The four sides of that, we have a variety of different options on the back shown in the rear elevation. They can get a triple window, they can get a triple transom, and they can get a triple transom door, or atrium door, I'm sorry, with transom above that. If they don't get steps to grade, then there's a guardrail that's placed there. On the right side elevation, they can go from fixed windows that give them some privacy, or if they want to go to a 3052 window, we offer that as an option on the right side elevation as well. Those would be included on lot 27 based on the staff recommendation. Next slide. And here we're showing the same thing with the Craftsman elevation. Next slide. And the arts and crafts for the Oakland house, the 4 sides of the elevation. Next slide. And here we're showing again the front door options, same thing. You got a 3/4 glass or you got a 1/4 glass with the different elevations. Next slide. This is the optional family room extension. There's a 2-foot bump out that's showing up on the left-hand side of the house. Again, the standard is fixed higher windows for privacy, but they can purchase a 3052 window. To the right of that left side elevation bump out for the family room. On the second floor, it's a fixed window, or they can go with an optional 3052. And we also offer a fixed window on the landing going to the basement. So those 2 windows that are showing, as you look at the left side elevation to the right of the bump out, are on the stairwell on the interior of the house. Next slide. So here we're showing the optional sunroom that comes out the back of the house. That's why we didn't show the front, because it doesn't affect that. That bumps out, gives them a fairly large additional room that connects into the family room. And then we offer the same variety of window options on the back, the triple window, the atrium windows, and the possibility of a transom above the atrium. And the other window options are also shown. Next slide. This optional sunroom can also be expanded to have an owner's sitting room on the second floor and a small balcony. And that's what's showing here. You can see the rail around the balcony. That space just stacks right on top of the sunroom. Next slide. Here we're showing the attached 20-by-20 garage to the modern farmhouse elevation. Next slide. And this is the 20-by-20 on the Craftsman and the arts and crafts. Again, the 20-by-20 is standard across all 3 elevations. Next slide. And here we're showing the 25-by-25, the expanded. This is like the picture that I showed on the first one of the Oakland model. This is the modern farmhouse. Again, you get the turn gable with some vertical siding with this elevation. Next slide. And here again is the 25-by-25 with the arts and crafts and the Craftsman elevations. Next slide. And here we're trying to show the walkout condition. Again, you can get some additional windows and doors when you have the walkout. You can see the possibility of some doors on the side and doors on the rear when the walkout condition exists. Which ones of those they can pick depends on grade specific conditions, which will be addressed when we come in for, well, just before we come in for building permit, we'll submit the final grades for each lot. Next slide. And these are the detached garage options. Again, the bottom is the 20-by-20 and the upper ones are the 25-by-25 garages. Next slide. So here, this is specific to lot 28. So at this meeting, we would like to get approved for the elevation for lot 28. So we're showing an arts and crafts elevation, 25-by-25 attached garage. We're showing the sunroom and we're showing the owner's sitting room and balcony on the rear. So this one has pretty much all the extension option. It also includes the 2-foot family room extension that comes out on the right side elevation. Lot 28 is a partial walkout, so we would be able to accommodate on the rear elevation, the window that's shown at the basement level and the two doors that are shown under the doors in the sunroom. This is the lot 28 specific package. Lot 3, which is to the left of this as you look from Central Avenue, is in the county. That one is a modern farmhouse elevation, so that's why we picked the arts and crafts for this lot. Next slide. And that's the end of my presentation.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I mean, just to paraphrase, you have lots of options, I guess, huh?
It ended up being a little more than I thought when we put this all together.
Yeah, that's a lot. I'm curious, but you don't have to answer the question. It just what raises the curiosity is how in the world do you present this to a prospective buyer in a way that they can understand all of the options? But I'm sure you have that figured out.
That's a great question. We start out with the fact that you know, we can show them the pictures of the various houses that we have here, and we try to get them focused on structural options first and how they go together. But then now actually we've moved to Zoom calls to do the rest of the selections and things. But it is, this buyer is either a first-time buyer or maybe a first move-up buyer. Most have probably not bought new construction. So it does take a little hand-holding to get them through the process.
Sure, sure. Let me ask you a quick questions to clarify the presentation. Why is lot 28 singled out as a specific for tonight, and the rest are still open for options? Is that going to be your model home, or you're working?
No, that's going to be a spec house. We don't have a customer on that. Just based on our bank loan, we're allowed one spec unit. So we want to move forward with that. On the other 4, we want to hold the option out for the customer to pick either the Kensington or the Oakland model.
So we're sticking with the approved site plan. I just want to confirm, and Sam, this might be for you, and nothing that's being presented tonight alters the approved site plan in terms of footprint, curb cuts, all of that, right?
There you go. You can hear me now.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything we were talking about tonight was just for the new house types. In addition, the only other changes were to the driveway access on lot 27.
Okay.
And pushing the houses farther back on the lots.
Okay. But anything we had discussed earlier about relative size, any of that really stays pretty consistent. On lot 27, I think that's the one I want to get more clarity on about what you would see from East Deer Park Drive. Given that it's a corner lot, is there any special treatment to what essentially is the right side elevation for that house?
Well, the right side of the Kensington has a significant number of windows, and we went over this with staff. They were comfortable with the right side elevation of the Kensington with the optional windows that are shown there. They were not real supportive of our original submission on the right side of the Oakland, because that is the kitchen side and there's very few windows. So we went back, and the one I showed with several optional windows on the Oakland model. If we do the Oakland on lot 27, those optional windows are dictated based on staff report.
Okay. Well, you said if it's Oakland, I mean, would that be a prescribed model for that corner then, or I guess what I'm getting at is in another place and time, looking at a larger proposed plan, we would look at corner lots a little differently than just all of the other lots, and we would essentially call them key lots and want to see at least 2-sided, if not 3 or 4-sided architecture on them. In this case, you're not quite under that same constraint because it's not a design guideline and not a major project. But I guess it still holds here that I'd like to see a little bit more of a constraint on what happens on the East Deer Park side, not just open to whatever options are taken, but something that really does turn the corner. I know you had some wraparound porch options. Like you said, windows help that. You know, not changing the material right at the outside corner, you know, and having one kind of siding and then brick on the whatever it might be. So we can get into that a little bit more, but just to be clear, right now you don't have that per se, right? It's just been comments from staff.
And I
It's comments from staff. I'm sorry, Sam, go ahead.
Sure. So I might be able to help with this one. So this is actually a conversation that we had internally with staff about the facade facing East Deer Park Drive. And so we are proposing 4 conditions of approval. Condition number 4 reads, the final lot 27 facade that faces East Deer Park Drive must include all optional windows shown on the selected elevation drawing.
Okay,
We recognize that this is a prominent lot. It is a wide corner lot. And so we want to ensure that there is a lot of glazing facing East Deer Park Drive.
okay, very good. Commissioners, any other questions for the applicants team?
Uh,
Lloyd, sure.
Quick question about, is there are only 5 houses, obviously. There's no HOA involved here with the 5 houses, is there?
No,
And there isn't any HOA around the specific area that this particular, area that existed before these 5 houses go in?
I know there's no HOA abutting the property.
Okay.
Whether there's some farther down Central or East Deer Park, I wouldn't know that. I don't know
But
for
nothing
sure.
abutting the property.
There's no city HOAs that I'm aware of within that area.
That's all. That's all.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Tech team, do we have anybody queued up? Actually, I should look here. Anybody from the public that's got anybody from the public? Let's see, attendees, there's 3 in the attendees side. So we do have a hand up. So what I want to do then, tech team, would you play the testimony, how to comment, please, the video.
Good evening. If you've connected to the meeting tonight via Zoom and you're on a desktop or a laptop and you wish to make a public comment, we can't currently see or hear you. What you need to do, please, is wiggle your mouse around and look towards the bottom center of your screen. You should see a raise hand button. Go ahead and click on that now for us, please. Alternatively, if you've connected in via telephone, you can press *9.
All right, great, thank you. All right, I see a hand up. Well, no, wait a minute, excuse me. There was a hand up and now it's not. Let me look again. Okay, a hand up from Robert Mixell. Are you on, Robert? And it looks like you're muted. Okay, there we go.
Can you hear me now?
Sure can, Robert, thank you.
Yeah, just a couple questions. I live at 208. I'm right next to lot 24. My question is, with setting these houses back away from East Deer Park further than before the original plan, what is exactly the purpose of that? And because now, we kind of live in the back part of our house is where our family room is, and now I'm going to be looking out my back window and seeing the front of a house. And before it was all going to be lined up with everything along East Deer Park, so it's a little bit of concern.
Okay.
Then I have a question about the stormwater management plan, but I guess that'll come a little later.
Actually, go ahead and ask it now, and then we'll have
Okay.
the applicants team address all the questions when we get finished with the public testimony.
Okay, the question about the stormwater management plan, I see the revisions. And I spoke with Mr. Mitchell a few times out here at the property, and he assured me there'll be a swale between lot 24 and myself. And I don't see that on the revised one, unless I'm not seeing one of the little lines. But it looks like everything's going from the proposed house site sloping directly to my property, which is all downhill anyway, but I don't see a swale there. And because right now I know we're in construction phase there, but every time we have a rain that rains more than 4 hours of a day, I have a tremendous amount of water that washes across my driveway up to my house. And I've sent pictures to Marty, Mr. Mitchell, about it before, and it actually washed I have a pea gravel area where I park my one truck. It actually washed all the pea gravel, a lot of it, down my driveway and actually down East Deer Park. So I just want to clarify that there will be a swale between us, so none of this water from the site, even once it's finished, comes onto my property.
Okay. Any other questions? Because we'll get them all out on the table and then we'll double back and address them for you. Anything
That's
else?
pretty much all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. All
All
let me-
right, so I guess the first question.
hang on just a second, Mr. Mitchell. I just want to make sure there weren't any other folks from the public that wanted to comment or ask questions, and I don't see any hands up. So we'll leave it at that for now. And if somebody does duck in and want to raise their hand, please feel free. We're not done discussing yet. So yeah, let's go ahead and answer the questions. Let's start with the setback, if you would. If the sight lines for the adjacent homes will pick up the front of these buildings, or if they're still well enough in front of the rear walls of the adjacent house to be.
You know, I don't think that the front walls go behind the houses, so it won't be looking directly at the front elevation. Still be looking at the side elevation more than anything.
Okay.
Our Kensington model is a deeper footprint, so that will extend farther back on the lot. So just from a streetscape standpoint and from reaction to what customers had said in terms of where they wanted the house and use of the lot and things like that. So I think that as we transition into our lots, it'll make a nice feeling as you go towards the corner with Central Avenue.
Is the foundation in place yet for lot 24?
No.
No. Okay. So just for general description, how many feet off of the property line are you for the building line on lot 24? Just to give a general sense to the neighboring property owner.
To the side or to the front?
Well, I'm just thinking about separation, that in terms of what would be over there, there's likely to be ultimately trees and some other things that could buffer that view. And there's obviously distance as well, right?
Right. I mean, the house, has to be within the building restriction line. So we're, off the property line by that much. Mr. Mixel mentioned about the stormwater management. I think we only have the site plan in the package. I don't know if we have the actual stormwater management plan.
Well, it does show grading. The site plan shows the topo lines, and that is a little suspect if the intent was to have a swale or have some sort of a diversion to the sheet drainage. It's not apparent on the grading, but maybe you could offer more explanation for that.
Right. I mean, it's very clear on the stormwater management plan. There's actually a gray area where we have to put Curlex or something in the swale to make sure that it's stabilized immediately when we build that house. So there's not only a swale, there's also a 6-inch berm along Mr. Mixel's property. And what will also be beneficial for him is that when we bought the property and the way the situation is today, pretty much everything drains down to that corner of lot 24. It always has, and it always will, or it always does until we build the houses. When we did the original site plan, the requirement was to create a swale out from behind each one of those houses and direct the water separately to East Deer Park Road.
Mm-hmm.
So when the houses get built, that will happen. And, we've gone in and we've added a berm, we've added double layer of silt fence in a couple different places because this has been an issue. So we've addressed that, and that swale and that berm are still a part of the plan. Now, because of the swale and the berm requirements along Mr. Mixel's property, there's probably not a whole lot of room for landscaping. And if we do put anything there, it would be in the swale itself, which could be problematic for the drainage.
Okay, that's fair. Sam, I want to just leave you with something, if I could, please. I'll take that testimony as at least a subtle complaint of the current conditions there, and I don't know if they've been remedied or not, but if you would please take it back and be sure that we've got adequate separation during construction for any kind of erosion or runoff that might be happening, and make sure that's corrected before too much time is gone. If you would, please.
What we can do is we can forward the concerns that we heard tonight to our site development coordinator, and they can look into it to ensure that there's no issues out there.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And I think, so we discussed about the view and the setback, and we have the stormwater issue. So let's stay on top of that, because that's the last thing we want to hear about, is that the stormwater management plan is not working as it should. even during construction. All right, I don't see their hands up. So commissioners, any questions before we go to staff recommendation? No questions? All right. So Sam, just for the record and formally, what is staff's recommendation, please?
Sure. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibits submitted, the applicant's testimony and the staff report, findings and recommendation, grant AFP-8729-2020 amendment to final plan approval, finding it in compliance with sections 24-170 and 24-172A of the city's zoning ordinance with 4 conditions.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions on the recommendation? You're not seeing anybody raising hands or otherwise jumping in. Let me start kind of back into it. Any concerns with the revised architecture or the revised siting of the house plans? No.
They look compatible with what's there. I mean, it's a good addition to the neighborhood.
Yeah, it looks like a
Yeah,
high quality approach. I will reiterate, whatever happens from this moment forward on development of the site, we do have to be, I think, extra vigilant about impact in neighboring sites, whether it's noise from construction, runoff from stormwater, interim stormwater issues, whatever it might be. Let's stay on top of that. And if you're listening in our neighboring property, please do not hesitate to contact city staff to look into any issues you might have. We're happy to get out there and try to remedy that with the applicant. All right, any other concerns, questions? I'm not seeing anybody jumping in. We're moving very quickly to a motion. If anybody has any concerns, now's the time. All right. Looks pretty good, and I appreciate all the work that the applicant did to present this tonight. That is a lot of options for 5 houses. I wish we saw that on I wish we saw that on the 400 home developments we've had to review, but nice work. All right, is there a motion, please, on the recommendation from staff?
Okay, I'll jump in there.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibit submitted, the applicant's testimony, and the staff report, findings and recommendations, grant AFP-8729-2020 amendment to final plan approval, finding it in compliance with sections 24-170 and 24-172A of the city's zoning ordinance with the 4 conditions that were presented this evening.
Okay.
Second.
All right, it's moved and seconded. Commissioner Wessel.
Aye.
Commissioner Kaufman.
Aye.
Commissioner Winborn.
Aye.
Commissioner Cantrell.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye as well. Thank you all very much. Good luck, Mr. Mitchell. Looks like a good project.
Very detailed.
Thank you. Send us any buyers you might have.
We'll leave that to
You
you.
can build it out that much faster. Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, thanks very much. All right, commissioners, that takes us to from the commission. Lloyd, can I start with you tonight?
Yeah, a few things, quick things. One, again, I'd like to commend the city staff for the great job that they do cleaning up after a minor snowstorm and ice storm. And they were very diligent and conscientious, and they came through all hours of the day and the night. Another thing is with respect to what the chairman said about the Starbucks at Kentlands. I've just been observing that the stacking seems to be working. I think we may have conquered a big plan. Now, I don't know, when people start going back to work and back to school, that may overflow at some point. But right now, the stacking looks like it's working and not interfering with the pedestrian walk. And the third thing was, Greg, I had made note of the fact that there was no walkway between Kentlands Boulevard and Mattress Firm going to the Starbucks. And within a matter of, I'd say, 2 weeks, the cement was down, and we've got a sidewalk now that goes around the monument sign towards the Starbucks without having to walk in any mud or in the middle of the street. So thank you, Greg, and the staff for getting that done very quickly.
All right, great. Yeah, I was noticing that too. So that was you that got that done?
Well, I observed it and mentioned it to Greg, and it was taken care of right away. I do walk. Look, you got to walk around. There isn't much else to do as
Yeah.
far as activity.
No, I noticed that too when I was kind of keeping an eye on construction. So I'm glad you guys got ahead of that. Sharon, anything tonight?
I'll echo what Lloyd said about the Starbucks. I do walk there with the group in the mornings, and it's a lovely building. They need to work on trash cans though, because there are a lot of birds that seem to congregate and in the eating area. So they to divert the birds, there should be trash. But no, but it's the stacking does work well. We noticed it 2 days ago, I think, or 3 days ago. My husband and I were watching the cars coming through, and it looks great. Yes, and the snow removal was done very promptly. I didn't hear it like Lloyd did, though, clearly.
All right, very good. Thank you. Danny, anything tonight?
It's really interesting. Lloyd brought up two items I was going to bring up, so thank you, Lloyd. The snow removal was really great, and I did notice I was up late working on some stuff around 3, and I heard them come. And I live like on a little cul-de-sac, and they always do an amazing job. The city, Public Works, and all the other departments just do an amazing job, and it really was great. But I did notice I had to go to Lowe's. I was doing a couple things around the house, and I kind of observed that the stacking too, and it's a lot better than some other Starbucks, but that's a whole nother story. But I think we did a really good job on that. And I also wanted to thank Greg for getting back to me on that intersection that I mentioned. And actually, he did a pretty thorough job of investigating my concerns and telling me where it's going and how it will play out over the close of downtown Crown. So thank you very much, Greg, for getting right back to me and being very thorough with your explanation. I really appreciate the good job you do, and I hope that John is listening for your end of the year evaluation. So thank you. That's it from me.
All right, thanks.
I'm
Danny.
listening,
Phil?
Danny.
Okay.
Sounds like you're on mute, Phil.
Sorry about that. I've got two things. One is another sort of note of appreciation for our city's public works staff, but it has nothing to do with snow. And it ended up in a minor fender bender yesterday on East Diamond that was a result of somebody from out of town who didn't realize that a section of East Diamond is two-way or is 2 lanes of traffic because WSSC had removed the striping when they repaved the road. And Public Works responded within less than 6 hours of my email, had staff look into it, confirmed WSSC screwed up, and promised to get somebody out to put the missing striping back. And so I think that level of service you wouldn't see anywhere else in just about any other jurisdiction. So definite kudos to the Public Works and Streets Department.
Did you get to pick the color for the striping? I mean, that would be the ultimate, right?
That would be nice. I'm not sure. I'd like to see some samples. The other thing is sort of a larger conversation that sort of grew out of our review of the SDP plan tonight, and it's around the city's green code. And I happen to be scrolling after clarified, what applies. And based on the city code, it looks to me like a lot of the provisions of the IGCC that actually have teeth to them and impact site development have been eliminated by the city when the code was adopted. Just about any provision relating to site development or stormwater, and I could only look at a handful of them while the meeting was going on, but these are provisions that other jurisdictions, including I think Montgomery County, apply. Things like retaining stormwater on site that's clearly more stringent than some of our other stormwater codes. To me, I think it would be worth a little bit closer review. Obviously, these sorts of things have impact on cost, but they're not unheard of in other jurisdictions, and they're not requirements that don't have common industry solutions. So, I think that code was adopted several years ago, and it might be worth another look at some of those requirements that we've excluded that are stringent and push us to some more sustainable development to see whether either it's worth updating our city code to reflect them or just simply adopting some of the items.
Adopt the missing sections. John, does the Environmental Affairs Committee look into that kind of stuff? Would that be in their purview to review and comment on?
Well, it would certainly be something that they could look at. They don't really have purview, but we'll take this under advisement, Phil, because at the time we adopted the green code, the intent was to be actually greener than LEED. And perhaps we didn't really achieve that, and we'll look into that. Because that was not the intent.
Yeah, and again, I did a grand total of 5 minutes of scrolling, and I just got to the exclusions of Chapter 5, or Section 505, I think, of the IG, or 503 of the IGCC, that has all of the site development. And if we were applying IGCC to the site plan or the SDP we looked at tonight, there would be 0 permitted discharge off-site. Every drop of stormwater for the peak, 24-hour, I think a 2-year design storm, would have to be retained on site. And we've seen projects in the city achieve that. I mean, the Fitzgerald Auto Mall had humongous underground, dry well retention. And
Yeah.
So it's challenging, but it's not impossible. So from my standpoint, I think, and I am far from the greenest guy on the planet, but especially for things like stormwater and green roofs and solar heat island, a lot of the site development sustainability requirements are not the heavy lifts that they were 20 years ago. It's relatively common practice that we should be required.
Well, didn't we also get some of the stormwater criteria adopted in the city by virtue of adopting state level guidelines? John, wasn't that where a lot of it came from anyway?
Absolutely. I mean, we follow, the state guidelines, which are very, much more stringent than any other jurisdiction in this area. So,
yeah. But I wonder, and so when the code was adopted, was it bundled with everything else, with the other updates to our broader code adoptions, or was it brought in independently? The green portion, the green code portion.
Green code was brought in independently, but again, the intent was that it was greener than LEED. So
Yeah.
These comments tonight are surprising, and we'll absolutely look into them.
And the other thing to keep in mind is that LEED, with the change to LEED version 4, in 2018, when this version of IGCC was adopted, I'm a little fuzzy. I have to go back and look at my LEED adoption schedule, but it very well may have been greener than LEED at the time it was adopted. But LEED is continually advancing as well, and so there's always this complicated dance between IGCC, IECC, and LEED about who's the top dog in requirements. And so it's something that just needs to be constantly tracked, because what was a big deal 5 years ago is sort of commonplace. And that's the whole point of all these advancing codes, is to continually move the bar for sustainability, and we just should make sure that we're moving in step with that.
Yep.
Absolutely, we appreciate that.
Good point. All right, anything else, Phil?
Nope, nothing else from me.
All right, I just want to ask one quick question. Actually, I would say, echo the praise for Public Works. My guess is, since it hasn't snowed in 2 years, they were probably pretty excited to get the trucks out this time and actually use all the equipment. I would have been anyway. I was curious, Greg, or maybe John, what is the status of the CBS site development? I think we saw a site plan quite a while ago, and I would have expected a demo permit by now to be executed. Is that?
The site plan's been approved. I don't believe they have submitted for the demo permit yet, or any building permits for that matter.
Really?
But other than that, I don't have any other updates on the status of it.
No
Waiting
news.
for the vaccine.
Okay, thanks. All right. So from staff, Greg, do you want to start off?
Sure. If the tech team could bring over Sam Copeland, I'd like to introduce him to the commission, this being his first night here.
Okay.
Yep, there he is. So
Hi,
again,
Sam.
Sam's
Welcome
a new
back.
planner with us. He's been with us a couple months now. This is obviously his first meeting in front of you guys. He comes from us from Portland, Oregon, or sorry, not Portland, Oregon, Tigard, Oregon, near Portland. He's a planner one with the city. We're excited to have him. Obviously, it's his first meeting with the commission, and I just wanted to introduce him to everybody here.
Thanks. Welcome, Sam.
Hi.
And nice job tonight, by the way.
Welcome, yeah.
Hi there. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, I was like, who's that dude?
Welcome.
Yep, I'm your new planner one, and I'm very excited to be here.
Well, you did a great start. You got a great
Yeah.
start there.
Nice work tonight.
Oh.
So remind me, Greg, are you guys still divvied up sort of based on categories of plans and projects?
Yeah, the planning department's still divided up by either long range or community planning. So Sam is under community planning.
Okay. Excellent. All right, thanks. Well, welcome. You don't have to stay any longer. It's getting late if you need, but of course on the West Coast, it's still early. So maybe you're still used to that, I
Yeah, only 6 o'clock over there.
don't. All right, very good. Well, welcome. Look forward to seeing you more.
Great, thank you very much.
All right.
And then there's a couple dates for the commission I have as well. Our next planning commission meeting is February 17th. And just a reminder, there's the joint work session on the Lake Forest Mall master plan. That is March 8th.
Okay, great. Thanks. John, are you jumping on anything tonight? You're muted. You're muted, John. He lost his mute button. No, you're still muted. Tech team, can someone go to John's house and unmute him?
Just text me, John.
Okay, maybe we're having some technical. There you go.
Okay, sorry, everybody. I lost my video. I lost everything.
Oh, no.
But I have a number of items tonight. First of all, last night, or not Monday night at the mayor and council meeting, the public use text amendment was approved by the mayor and council 4-1. I have to say that the council, most of them, actually all of them, were especially appreciative of the thoughtful comments that you gave at your recommendation on January 6th, which was quite a day for everybody. Yeah, that went very well on Monday night. I wanted to mention Lake Forest Mall. We are very close to a first draft of the master plan amendment. We hope to finalize it at a meeting next Wednesday. The joint the joint work session for Lake Forest Mall is March 8th, which hopefully you all will be able to attend. Our package is due on February 19th. So we hope to have that master plan amendment completed by then. I will tell you, April is going to be a very busy month for you all. There is 2 joint public hearings on April 5th. One is a triple public hearing of the Mayor and Council Planning Commission and Historic District Commission on the possible historic designation of the Identity Building at 414 East Diamond Avenue. Also that night will be the sketch plan joint public hearing for the Novavax parcel. Novavax purchased the land behind 700 North or 700 Quince Orchard Road, which they have now leased. And they're proposing up to 1 million square feet on that property of R&D, office, and manufacturing space. So that's incredibly exciting. Also on April 19th, there's a fairly minor rezoning joint public hearing, but that's another meeting for you all. So April's going to be busy. And I just wanted to add that planning staff, both community planning and long range planning, have been meeting with developers for a number of major projects on a pre-submission basis. So following April, we're probably in for quite a busy several months as we bring these plans forward.
Good to hear. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that update. And I'll leave this with you. I'd mentioned it, I think, at an earlier meeting, but wherever it fits, but maybe you could put on the calendar tentatively for, and maybe it's not April, an update on how the master plan process is either moving forward or not, or to what level that's looking forward. maybe even 2 years. If it's not happening in 2021, what may be slated for 2022?
Yep, that's on the list as well. But I will tell you, we've been pretty swamped lately.
Yeah, and I respect that. I think that's good news, right? I mean, that's that's what you want to have happen.
Right.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you for that. Anybody else have anything before we go? All right. Well, not seeing anyone. I hope you all have a good evening, the rest of the week, and we're adjourned.